Sounds good. Thanks, Aaron.
All right, folks.
Good morning, everyone.
Sorry, Steph. Welcome to this week's edition of Webinar Wednesday. We're joined by Steph and Hayley from Georges River Council today, talking about their 2050 Leading for Change work. As always, you're not here to listen to me, so I'm going to go quiet. If you have any questions or anything you want to raise during the presentation, drop it into the chat just off to the side of the screen. And we can talk about that at the end of the presentation. Anyway, that's it from me. I'll hand over to Hayley and Steph. Away you go.
Thanks, Aaron, and hopefully you can hear us okay. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this morning. We hope that you're all well and keeping healthy and connected during these times. So my name's Steph. I'm a Senior Project Officer here at Georges River Council, and I'm joined by Hayley Barnes.
Hi guys, so my name's Hayley and I'm the Coordinator of Strategy and Innovation at Georges River Council. So my team, sorry, I'm just getting some background. So my team consists of some senior project officers that look after some key city shaping strategies, which include the 2050 vision. We also look after the innovation strategy, reputation for council. My team also looks after economic development for council, which is a huge priority for us at the moment, given the current climate. And we also are moving into partnerships, advocacy and marketing. So pretty small dynamic team, but quite a robust remit of work. And now I'll hand back over to Steph to start the presentation.
All right. So just a bit of background about the Georges River LGA. So the amalgamation of Hurstville and Kogarah City Councils back in 2016 brought together two vibrant communities that share many similarities due to their geographical location, their history and strong sense of community. So our LGA is really connected and it's a dynamic part of Sydney. It's close to the CBD, close to the airport and Port Botany, making the area key to delivering the Greater Sydney Commission's vision for Sydney as a metropolis of 3 cities, where people have access to jobs and services within 30 minutes of their home. So you've hopefully heard of our 2 strategic centres, Hurstville and Kogarah. We've also got a large number of smaller villages along the T4 Illawarra train line. So our 2050 vision works to make the most of our city as a whole, building off the concept of Hurstville being the cultural heart of our city and Kogarah being the brains of our city due to its health and education precinct, with a pulse beating through all of our centres. So we've got high aspirations for our city, but we found that we're in a generally quite unknown and underutilised spot in Sydney. So you'd be forgiven for thinking that Georges River is actually more south or more west than what it actually is. And certainly the name Georges River is partly a factor in that perception. So we're trying to get the word out there around how connected we actually are to the CBD and other centres, and we really want people to come and discover us. So here we are in the context of Greater Sydney. So we're in the South District. We border with Canterbury, Bankstown, Bayside and Sutherland. So we're well positioned and our location and environment make us a place with great potential and opportunity. As we're a now well-established entity post-amalgamation, we're really focusing on positioning ourselves and council as a strong and influential entity within Greater Sydney. And so that's a primary focus of our team here at Council, the City Strategy and Innovation Directorate, which was formed end of 2018. So some key work that we've completed includes the vision that we're about to talk about, the Kogarah Place strategy with the Greater Sydney Commission and Bayside Council. We've developed a Kogarah investment attraction strategy to build a unique value proposition for Kogarah, our health and education precinct. We've developed a reputation strategy using qualitative and quantitative research to measure our perception and to see how we can build on it. We're developing an innovation strategy focusing on creating a culture of innovation internally, and a Hurstville Place strategy to really develop the position of Hurstville as our cultural heart of the South. So really our next focus is embedding and implementing these strategies to create great places. Great, so the 2050 vision, just some background as to how it's come about. So the preparation of a 30-year vision was committed to as a way of highlighting our strengths and potential, and just a general commitment for us to be future focused. So we worked with SGS Economics and Planning to develop this strategy, which was adopted by Council earlier this year. So the Georges River 2050 vision really is about building a better future. It's about amplifying our strengths and unlocking opportunities. We know that the future presents significant challenges, and even currently we are faced with significant challenges. And so we need to strengthen the community's ability to be resilient, to adapt and thrive in response to these uncertainties, these local shocks and stresses. And so this is particularly topical at the moment, given the current pandemic and with local government grappling to respond to still continue to deliver those essential services and help our community and businesses come out stronger on the other side. So the 2050 vision reflects our community's medium-term aspirations and provides council leadership in response to a broader agenda and the big shifts that are needed to create a more sustainable future. So this strategy is our commitment that we'll be a positive leader for change, despite the challenges that we're faced with at present and in the future. So we've already got quite strong foundations in place in terms of our IPNR framework and in response to New South Wales Government strategic planning. So the Georges River 2050 work is all around looking beyond our current work plans. So the figure on the screen shows where the vision sits within the local, state and national context. So it's just shown there in pink. So we acknowledge that these plans and policies are interconnected and they don't exist in isolation. It's also important to point out in terms of community engagement, this wasn't undertaken to inform this vision. Rather, what we did was we used the extensive consultation that took place as part of our LSPS and other major strategies such as our CSP and our economic development strategy to actually inform our strategic directions. But we did place the document on public exhibition for I think around 2 months at the end of last year, beginning of this year, for the community to have their say. So the 2050 vision was shaped in response to the role that local government can have in light of global, national and metropolitan trends. So the Australian National Outlook report by the CSIRO points out 6 main challenges in a rapidly changing context. So these 6 interlinked megatrends are already occurring and they'll continue to have an impact beyond 2050. So they're described as the rise of Asia, technological change, climate change and environment, demographics, trust and social cohesion. So local government, being concerned with matters close to home, has a leading role in ensuring that infrastructure and services respond to these changes. So some of the megatrends and opportunities for local government might be in terms of innovation in provision of water and energy services and infrastructure, reducing waste to landfill, encouraging self-sufficiency through urban farms, productive backyards, balconies, street and fresh food markets. In terms of biodiversity, so really increasing tree canopy to promote and protect existing biodiversity and habitats. The shifting world economy, so promoting social connections and culture and creative expression. In terms of the ageing population, making sure that we're aligning services with changing demographics, such as the ageing population, and services and facilities that will need to be physically and financially accessible, and having a look at the role of our health and education precincts as well in that. So the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals set a clear agenda for sustainable development globally. So the 17 goals there pictured on the screen are supported by 169 targets and 230 indicators. So they respond to global economic, social and environmental challenges. And Australia is a signatory, along with all the other member states in the UN. So global and national success can only be achieved by aligning these goals with local planning and investment. And on that, the Australian government's voluntary national review undertaken in June 2018 acknowledged the importance of local government in achieving these sustainable development goals at a local level. So again, Georges River 2050 is a local response to these sustainable development goals, and the vision embeds these principles into council's operations and reporting. And while it can be difficult to be optimistic about the future of our cities and regions, even in the present moment, we acknowledge that cities need to be part of the solution for a better future. So to develop the Georges River 2050 vision, there was a robust but quite streamlined engagement process. So as I mentioned earlier, we didn't actually engage directly with the community from the outset, because the document's more, I guess, council's vision for the LGA rather than the community's vision, which we see the CSP really taking that role. But that said, we did obviously use the extensive amount of community data to inform the development of the strategy. So after we went through all of that data and did a literature review, we then began internal engagement just with our team and other key business units. So we did just a silent brainstorm, and you'll see there on the screen some of the outputs of that. So it was simply around what they thought made Georges River unique. So we then engaged our executive and councillors. And to do that, we did a bit of a different approach. So I'm not sure how many of you on the line have heard of Mentimeter, but it's quite an engaging tool, and it shows you're able to get results and feedback in real time. So this is the tool we use to engage our executive team and our councillors on the priorities for the overall direction of the strategy, and also to get some project ideas, transformative ideas that were relevant to our area. So rather than just doing a typical presentation or workshop, we use this tool. We now use it a lot for internal and external engagement. And what we want to do is actually run a mini version of this session now with you. So hoping you've got your smartphone on hand, you can probably even use your laptop or tablet, whatever you're actually using to sign into the webinar. So if you're able to please go to www.menti.com and then type in the code 415460. So while you're doing that, I'll just flick to the tool. So it's up there on the screen if you missed it, www.menti.com, using the code 415460. And we've already got some coming councillors, was obviously in a Georges River context, but we thought we would broaden it out and ask you, how would you describe your LGA's existing strengths? So just give it a couple of moments. So as people submit, they come through in real time. Got some great ones coming in. So community engagement seems to be quite a large theme there. So the bigger the text, that means, I guess, multiple responses from people. So we've got community engagement, we've got destination, community, passionate, green, location. So some really great themes coming in, I guess, all around what attracts people to your area. Tourism, responsive, balanced. Great. So I think that's everyone, which is great. So the big ones that we're seeing, community engagement and destinations. So that's fantastic. So I'll just get you to then let us know, what do you want your LGA to be known for in 2050? There we go. We've got livability, community spirit, place for people, sustainable, destination again, which is great, leadership, a big community theme coming through, respect for all community, place for people, sustainable, a big one. That's, yeah, not surprising. Yeah, nice. Regional transport hub, livable, great. So some really great themes, and just from my own observation, like all quite relating to, I guess, the Greater Sydney Commission's focus on cities for people, streets for people rather than cars, place-based approaches, which is all around sustainability, connectivity, productivity and livability. So that's really great to see. So we just wanted to give you a little example of the sessions that we ran with our councillors and executive, because sometimes it can be a bit difficult to get their engagement and buy-in, but we found that this tool really, I guess, got them a bit excited. It's all anonymous as well, so people can be a bit daring and out there and bold. So we really recommend using it for your own engagement, whether that's internal or external. Pop back in. And I'll just show you the types of responses that we got. So the word cloud, so some of the words that our internal leaders used to describe the aspirations for our LGA in 30 years' time. So we've got creative, connected, green, diverse, innovative as the big themes coming out. So what we actually did after that was we themed these and developed some guiding principles, which we then got the leadership team to rank. So you'll see in that bar chart type figure, we had them rank the principles. So number one was innovative delivery of services and infrastructure, including water, energy, and digital. Second was services and facilities that are physically and financially accessible to all. We then had known for expansive tree canopy, biodiversity and ecological habitats. Vibrant local cities as fourth, and then cultural and entertainment facilities and events. So that's the feedback that we, I guess, collated, and along with the feedback from the community through past strategies, we then use that to inform our vision and strategic directions, which Hayley's going to now talk you through.
Hi guys, can everyone hear me?
Okay. All right, just let me know if you can't hear me. So thanks, Steph, for running us through really thoroughly how we started to develop this vision. And I think it's really important to reiterate a couple of points that Steph outlined for you, is that
this this particular strategy was all about being positive. So it was all about taking a really positive approach to the future. You know, there's a lot of doom and gloom trends and forces out there that talk about 30 years into the future, and you know how cities are going to become so overly inhabited by people and infrastructure that the livability is really going to be stripped away. So this strategy for us was really council's commitment to the Georges River area, that we were going to be positive and that we were going to seek to truly understand what those forces were that were going to impact on us over the next 30 years, and how we could take some positive steps now to ensure we had a positive future. So if we look at it through that lens, and we look at all of the huge amount of engagement work that had been done with our community previously, because you also need to remember that our context as a merged council meant that there was some key strategies that we needed to develop straight away, which meant that the community had been engaged quite extensively to develop these strategies. So rather than going back to them again, we really trusted their voice and trusted what they told us previously to develop this 30-year vision for our city. So based on all the engagement and based on the internal engagement with our staff, executive and councillors, the 2050 vision for Georges River is, in 2050, the Georges River area will be an accessible, green, diverse and innovative place, community and economy. In 2050, Georges River is connected naturally. So the strengths of the city that are identified by our community, our staff and our councillors. And the connected naturally is the bit in the middle that is, well, yeah, so we're connected. So we're connected as a community, we're connected as a location, 20 minutes from the CBD, 10 minutes from Sydney's largest airport. We're also connected to opportunity. So we're connected, you know, through our accessibility. We're connected through our amazing educational institutions in the area. As I mentioned earlier, our community is very closely connected, and the merger actually created an even stronger bond between those two former councils. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts that hold the vision together. And then if we look at the other strategic directions that sit outside in that wheel that you can see, accessible, obviously, we're green. We have a very, very green LGA. We do, a lot of our tree canopy does sit further towards the south. We have a very strong goal to increase that tree canopy across the whole LGA into the north, which is closer to the CBD. The south of our LGA is closer in towards the Sutherland Shire. And as you can imagine, as you can probably picture, the national park there as well. So obviously it's a little bit more green, closer to the river. We are an extremely diverse community. Hurstville is the largest Chinese population, I'm pretty sure in Sydney, don't hold me to that. But yeah, and we have an extremely diverse population in terms of ages as well. And then for us, innovation, and I'll just sit on this one for a little bit. Innovation was our real stretch agenda. So it was important for us to acknowledge what our strengths were as a city, but then it is also extremely important to understand what your stretch agenda is. And innovation actually underpins all of those other pillars. So there is no way over the next 30 years that you can become a greener city if you don't think of innovative ways to actually carry this greening out. Because as you know, as there's greater demands for infrastructure throughout the city, we need to make sure the infrastructure is planned with green in mind. So, and the same with the accessibility and the increasing diversity of a city. So innovation is for us our stretch agenda. In a survey that we did with staff around Christmas to help develop our innovation strategy, staff, I think it was about 80% of staff, actually believed that as a council we were very innovative, which whether or not we are actually gives a lot of hope and a lot of, it gives us a lot of insight into our staffing base, that there is a high level passion and motivation around being innovative. So it's really important that we find a way to harness that that creativity that underpins innovation and actually use that to become a more innovative city. So yeah, I definitely think we have some fantastic foundations around that. And now I'm going to do a little shameless plug for our innovation and talk to you a little bit about our recent public domain improvements. So Georges River Council, along with our partners Street Furniture Australia and the University of New South Wales, was actually lucky enough to receive 2 Smart Cities grants. So in round 1 and round 2 of the Smart Cities and Suburbs program, we were the only partnership to do so. And the second round actually created, as you can see on the screens, these chill out hubs, which are essentially outdoor co-working spaces. So we've actually installed 3 of these across the LGA. Unfortunately, they're roped off at the moment because no one can dwell at them. But before they were roped off, they were highly utilised by our community. And it's just a little snapshot into how we can be more innovative in the way that we design our public domain and the way that we build our cities for people in the future. So as I move on to talk about a little bit more detail of the strategy, I just want you to keep in mind that yes, the strategy is a 30-year vision, but it really talks to the strength of our city now, and it talks to those small moves that we've made and that we will make that will make sure, or that will put us in the best position possible to achieve our vision come 2050. Okay, so as I've been saying, the concept behind the strategy development was small steps, big results. So I'm going to take one of the themes, which is accessible, and talk you through how that was developed. So the key theme around accessibility for us is that there were opportunities for everyone through connecting globally across Sydney and locally. So as Steph mentioned at the start of the presentation, we believe we are key to Sydney achieving its 30-minute city aspirations. If you don't connect the south to if you don't connect the South District into your central river district, central city, into your central city, into Parramatta, and then further on to the Western Parklands, you have no hope in achieving your 30-minute city vision. So that is a key piece of work that we are working on. It also ensures that there's productivity, livability, and that as our population rises and we have an increase in young workers, we're able to meet the demand of the changing demographics as well. It's also really important for us not just to think about how people get to and from our LGA and from the South District. It's also important to think about how people travel within our LGA. So we have an aspiration of 10-minute villages. So everyone is able to access services within their village within 10 minutes. So, and that should ideally be at the lowest form of transport. So being able to catch public transport or walk to those particular areas. So then when we broke down each of the different pillars, we then said, okay, well, why do we need to take action? And I just spoke briefly about that then, because at the moment, you know, we have a really low job containment rate. You know, there are a lot of people travelling out of our area to access jobs. And if it's taking them a long amount of time to get to those jobs, well, then those job prospects also decrease for them as well. So that's one of the key things that we want to do. We also want to make sure that we're meeting the changing demands for cycling and walking. And particularly at the moment, I'm sure everyone's noticed the amount of people that are actually walking and they're cycling. So rather than, because that's the main form of I suppose interactions and getting outside at the moment. So it's really building out and responding to those needs and building our city in such a way that we can help adapt to challenges as they're faced as well. And then there's obviously the big issue of the rise of autonomous vehicles and how we plan our city around that. So one of the small steps that we're doing at the moment is looking into a car share trial. So trying to remove as many cars from our key centres as possible, and really trying to focus on the public transport elements of that. So then it starts to move into what we need to achieve. So as mentioned before, the strategy really focuses on what we're doing now. So there's some key projects that we've worked on over the last 12 months. We've got a place strategy with the Greater Sydney Commission and Bayside Council. It's super important to us to be building these partnerships and collaborating with not only our adjoining councils, but also the different groups that really advocate and plan for Sydney's future. So that strategy talks directly to the key pillar of accessibility, because it works to improve connections to and within Kogarah. One of the other things that we're doing is, as I mentioned, the car share trials. We're also looking at ways to expand, like pop-up low-cost ways to expand the size of our pedestrian walkways. In response to what's happening at the moment, so that there's actually more space for people to walk, and they're not feeling like, you know, they're breaking the social distancing rules, and, you know, we can more comfortably accommodate that as an LGA. So from the small steps into the big results, we then identified our key city shaping projects, and these key city shaping projects were part of the engagement that we did with our councillors and our executive team. So it was saying, okay, so in the future, what do we need? What are those big things, those big impactful city shaping projects that we need to work towards to really meet this vision? And for us, in accessible, if we take that example, it was the River Rail, so the Central Rail corridor between Kogarah and Parramatta, and this is a planned mass transport link in the Future Transport 2056 strategy. But for us, it is super important that we can either A, fast track it, or B, make sure that that does not fall off the radar, because it is critical to our city's success and the ability for our community to access high quality jobs and services into the future, that this rail link is created. And then you can see on the slide here, this particular diagram is actually in our 2050 vision, and it just shows what the different transport links into the future will do for Sydney as a whole. So just pause on that for a second. So there are some key pieces of work that we're developing now as the small steps to these bigger vision, because we all know a big, a city shaping mass transport link infrastructure project isn't something that happens overnight. But some of the things that we've done is that we've worked on an advocacy paper with Arup, the firm, a firm who was able to get a lot of ground research for us to show how important that rail link was in the context of all of the infrastructure projects being lobbied for around Sydney. So that particular project went to our council last week, and they've endorsed that advocacy document. And it's something that we're going to be building a program around in the next couple of months. All right, so now the images that you can see on the screen now, there are actually some hero images that we developed for our 2050 vision. So these are future images. So this isn't the city now, this is the city in the future. So on the left there you have Hurstville, and that's actually our civic precinct. So that's where our council offices are located. And there is a master plan for this particular precinct. So it's really unashamedly expressing that, you know, we have high ambitions for our city and Hurstville as our strategic centre and for its place in Sydney, and promoting that in such a way that people understand and future investors into our city understand what we have, the vision that we have. And the other image there is of Kogarah in the future, and it's a little bit broad, but as someone who knows the image, it actually shows future universities. It shows what else does it show down there? Developments over the train line. It's it's really a medical. So it's a health innovation and education precinct that's built around our existing assets of the hospitals, the TAFE, and the smaller university presence that we have within Kogarah. So the 2050 vision actually highlights these strategic centres, and it calls out those city shaping projects that we want to achieve within these strategic centres of Kogarah and Hurstville. So as well as talking about our two strategic centres, Kogarah and Hurstville, there's also some other city shaping projects that the strategy talks about. So these are your 100% renewable energy and zero net emissions, zero waste to landfills. These fit more in the green category. Libraries as discovery and sharing networks. So how in the future will libraries be used? What is the best way to accommodate the future needs of our community through those spaces? So really doing a deep dive into the future of our libraries, and also the development, the development of a child-friendly city, and the concept that a city that's friendly for children is a city that is accessible and livable for people at all ages. So yeah, thinking about how that then influences our public domain and planning decisions into the future. Okay, so you're probably all wondering, how do we actually deliver this strategy? So the delivery of this strategy a lot of the time sits within other strategies that my team's developed. So the reputation strategy, the key strategies for Kogarah, so the place strategy, and also the investment attraction strategy, and the Hurstville heart of the city. And those strategies all have key projects that talk to the strategic outcomes of the 2050 vision. It's also important to note that a lot of the biggest city shaping projects that you'll read in the 2050 vision are actually projects that are forcing us and also putting a strong importance on developing partnerships to achieve the project goals, including advocacy programs, and really understanding what our place in delivering those projects are. There's also a strong importance on monitoring and reviewing the particular actions in the project, because because it is a 30-year vision, if we meet our zero net emissions target, in 10 years' time, we need to find a way to then say, okay, great, we've achieved that. What's the next step? So continuously reviewing and evolving those projects as well, and also making sure that when we next go out for our CSP, we're then able to pull in those key actions that need to happen now into the delivery and operational plans, so that we are more likely to be able to achieve those outcomes. So that's a really critical point. Without this document, sometimes when you go out to the community, you may not get the real future-focused ideas and projects that you need to develop your city into the future. And sometimes that's just because of the demographic that you get responding to engagement. That's what we found anyway. So this is a really good way and a really good tool to actually change the direction of the conversation and really make it strategic and forward focused. I'll race through because I know we're getting close to the end of the time. So what does this mean now? So now that we've got this COVID-19 crisis that is completely changing the way that people work and interact with each other, it doesn't mean that we throw the baby out with the bathwater. We need to continue to keep in mind our visions for the future and our goals for the future, but we need to adapt them slightly to what's happening now. So my team's actually developing an economic and social recovery plan for the city, but it's making sure that whatever plans and actions we put in place now don't hinder us in our future vision. So we need to make sure we support our social, our Georges River community, to make sure that we're as strong as possible to recover, to pick up the pieces at the end and continue on with the amazing work that we were doing prior. And this is a little, this is a dedication to our director, Sue, who's always talking about Dolly Parton as her favourite philosopher. And it's something that the team and I have really taken on board. And it's I think for me, it's the underlying principle of the 2050 vision is you need to find out who you are and you do it on purpose. So we went through a journey of really discovering who we were as a city, and then looking at those particular unique strengths, that value proposition that we have as a city, and then hell, we're going to do it on purpose. So we're going to spend the next 30 years making sure that we become that unique city that we strive to be. All right, so that's all from Steph and I. I'll hand you back over to Aaron.
All right, folks, any questions? I've actually got sort of one myself. So just give everyone else a chance to think of any if they've got them. I'm wondering if this as an activity, as a piece of work, did it help? Was your team pretty well integrated already after amalgamation, or did this large piece of work, lots of engagement, lots of working with each other, sort of helped cement you and your colleagues as a team after the amalgamation, or were you all kind of already there? Because I know talking to a lot of councils who did amalgamate, and I know it was a few years ago now, but they're kind of talking how, you know, the last sort of 6 months or so, they've started to finally feel like they're one council, but they've been looking, you know, it still hasn't all sort of settled together because people are in disparate business units and disparate locations and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess I'm kind of just wondering, internally for staff culture, did this sort of help with that integration within your team, but also maybe a bit wider across council as well?
Yeah, do you want me to answer that one? So I think it's important to note that our merger journey was actually really successful. So one of the key things that Georges River was able to achieve really early on in the piece, and it was coined Project Fusion, was actually getting all the staff into the one location. And a lot of feedback I've heard from other merged councils is that the actual physical separation, although I think we're learning to deal with it better now, was a real barrier to the culture of an organisation evolving. So before working in the City Strategy and Innovation team, I actually worked for our Transformation and Change team, where I was one of the program coordinators there. So heavily involved in the key merger projects. So then when I came over to lead the Strategy and Innovation team, the task was not only, continuing on that culture journey and that merger journey, but it was actually then, okay, so now that we've established ourselves as a new council, as a new entity, how do we look forward? So the key piece that came out of the 2050 vision was that really forward facing, that vision, that future vision for the city, that whole, okay, put down, you're no longer Hurstville, you're no longer Kogarah, you're Georges River. And this is what, these are our strengths as a new city. And this is how we're going to work together to build that. And that was really important for my team because we all came from different parts of the business. I had a community engagement officer, someone from IT, someone from events, a whole range of people with, a whole plethora of disciplines and their backgrounds. So it was important to, I guess, centre us around an idea and a concept and a purpose. And then I think this also gave purpose for the organisation as well as the multitude of other projects that were going on as well at the same time. I hope that answers the question.
It does. Thank you. All right, folks, does anyone else have any questions or any comments that they'd like to make?
if anyone does have any questions that pop up, after you go away and think so much about this webinar, feel free to either connect through Aaron or connect with Steph or I directly. I can always send you the strategy to have a look at. Yeah, more than happy to talk to you about some of the challenges in writing the strategy as well, because it's easy to talk about, how amazing it is on the other end, but a piece of work like this is still challenging. So yeah, have a think about it. If you've got anything that you want to add or you want to know about, just drop me a line.
All right, folks. Well, I'll make sure your contact details are available when I post this to the website. But yeah, if there's no more questions, then I guess we'll call it there. Hayley, thank you very much. Steph, thank you. Everyone who attended, thank you for your time as well.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Aaron.
No worries, folks. So
Thanks, Aaron.
enjoy the rest of your day. I believe we have an integrated planning and reporting Q&A this afternoon at like the time that I've forgotten. I think it's 2 o'clock off the top of my head. So if you have got other questions or concerns about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the IPNR process, please come along to that Q&A this afternoon. Steph and Hayley, thank you both again. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for having us. Bye.